Okay, good morning. I'll call to order the October 3rd, 2022 regular meeting of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners, and our first order of business will be our Pledge of Allegiance, and after that we'll have our invocation by Pastor Josh Frazier. So if everyone please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Let's pray. God in heaven, we thank you for another beautiful day. We thank you for all the blessings that we have and we've received over the past weeks and days and months. Lord, we ask that this morning you would give us wisdom and clarity and guidance in all the decisions that we make. We thank you for all the folks who put their precious time into making this place a better place for us to live. We thank you for the beauty that we have herein. We are looking forward to the coming seasons and the changes in all that we see, including the different changes that come through decision makings. And we again just pray for your wisdom and your guidance. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Our next order of business is our public comment session. I have one person signed up to speak, but if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. And our first person, if you would state your name and your address. So the first person to speak is Monroe Miller. Welcome.
My name is Monroe Miller. I live at 2200 Camp Branch Road. On August 25th, Kirk Kirkpatrick accepted an invitation to speak at the Concerned Citizens of Haywood at the Buttered Biscuit, as most of you commissioners have done, with the exception of Kevin Ensley, who was sick. At that meeting, Kirk Kirkpatrick committed to look into the needles issue. To his credit, Kirk Kirkpatrick brought up this issue in 2 successive meetings during Constituent Concerns and volunteered, along with the support of 2 other commissioners, a quorum to find a way to reduce needle exchange programs in the county, perhaps through an ordinance. Apparently, this quorum could not pull it off, and the ordinance has degenerated into a resolution. So commissioners will approve a watered-down resolution, not an ordinance, during this meeting. This resolution is lip service, which will do nothing to address the growing needle problems in this county. A roll of toilet paper is worth more than this resolution. On September 15th, Brandon Rogers accepted an invitation to speak at the Concerned Citizens of Haywood at the Buttered Biscuit. He spoke for an hour and a half. The last half hour was consumed with a lively debate between Brandon Rogers, Terry Ramey, and myself regarding my request for public information. I insisted that I was being stonewalled and had not been provided with the information I was requesting. This request was simple. How much had the county poured into the money pit called the Jonathan Creek property since the county purchased it in 2008? The result I received multiple times was a little over $462,000. I was provided with the following: printouts of expenses for 3 years' worth of expenditures, was told that the accounting system can only account for the current and 3 previous years. I was told I was receiving totals for investment expenses as I requested. I did not request investment expenses. I requested all of the money the county poured into this property. Terry Ramey brought up multiple instances of expenses which Brandon could not explain. After considerable discussion, I asked Brandon Rogers what he could do to resolve the problem. Before the entire group, Brandon Rogers offered to set up a meeting with Christiane Owen, Finance Director, Terry Ramey, and me, and he would like to sit in on the meeting. Well, during the last county commission meeting's constituent concerns, there was a lot of discussions on Pardon?
Go ahead and finish.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Go ahead and finish your comments.
Okay. There was a lot of discussion on needles and other issues, but nothing forthcoming from Brandon Rogers about a meeting with Christiane Owen. So Brandon, Terry, and I are still waiting to hear from you about setting up a time for all of us to meet with Christiane Owen. Waiting to hear from you so we can schedule the time of the meeting. You have my email address. I appreciate your allowing time for me to express my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else care to address the board this morning? Okay, I'll close the public comment session. We'll move to constituent concerns. Oh, and by the way, Tommy Long is joining us remotely. Tommy, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good morning.
Okay, I forgot to do that, Tommy. So, you're here, okay. All right, does anyone have any constituent concerns that they'd like to?
I don't have any concerns. We're going to discuss the resolution later on that Mr. Miller referred to, so I don't have any. We can discuss it then.
Yeah, that's true.
No, the only constituent concerns I had, I got with Mr. Moorhead on, and we've resolved most of those with our county staff. So nothing to bring up other than what Mr. Miller, I guess, brought up just a few minutes ago. And I guess a lot of our conversation may be resolved or revolved around whether or not that he had evidence of the money that he was asking about, which I think was close to $6 million. And we've asked for the evidence to be brought forward, and no evidence has been brought forward as of yet. So I would like to see that evidence if you've got it, Mr. Miller. So I guess other than that, that was a lot of our discussion that he referred to before I waste a lot more of our county staff's time. So if he can bring evidence forward, then we'll set up a meeting.
Okay. Do you have anything, Tommy?
No, sir. Everything I had has been addressed, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Okay, our next order of business is administrative agency reports and presentations. And the first item is update on Mountain Projects Transit System, Mountain Projects Program Director, Cy Simmons. Hey, Cy, how are you today?
Good morning. Good deal. I sent you some information last week, and you got a draft copy, so I laid an updated version of my numbers. I apologize for that, but what I'll share today is the correct numbers. As you know, Mountain Projects operates two different transit services in our county, one a door-to-door rural service, and the other one is an urban route service, the East Blackberry East bus and then the Mountaineer West bus. Mountain Projects is the direct recipient of the rural funds, and of course Haywood County is the recipient of the urban funds, which we're the vendor for that. So just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, and I think you do know that. There we go. I'm here to report our FY22 numbers, which are very encouraging. First number that I'd like to point out is the overall rural trips at about 19,354. Our urban trips, our east-west trips, total about 7,133 for a combined total of 26,487. Now, those numbers are very comparable to pre-COVID numbers. We're real encouraged by that. Quarter three saw our biggest rural trip count, and I believe that really comes at the end of spring and late winter, early spring, so a lot of people require a lot more door-to-door service. Our urban numbers are very encouraging. Our fourth quarter, we saw 2,622 trips, which is our highest we've ever had the month of August, we had over 1,000. This past August, so this will be first quarter, we had well over 1,000 trips during that time frame. So as the weather gets better, people get outside more, we see a lot more people taking advantage of this east-west bus service. I'll remind you that this east-west service that you're the direct recipients of, that federal funds, that started in the fall of 2019, right on the heels of the pandemic. So, you know, we didn't know more to get started than we got sort of shut down. So we're real excited about the direction of that urban service. The pandemic forced us to do quite a bit of reorganizing. We went from transporting people to transporting, I guess, over 10,000 food boxes for the county, and we were very happy and willing to do that. So, you know, I'll remind you of that. And then also back during Fred, like many of you, we were called into service not only the night of that evacuation, but for 2 weeks solid, the next 2 weeks, we provided free service up and down that Crusoe corridor and through Canton of anybody that needed anything. We didn't ask any questions. We went and got them where they needed to go, and we were glad to do that. And we still feel that we do some of that still today. Let's see, the types of trips we provide in both services are people that are trying to get to employment opportunities, medical. Ira's here this morning to talk to you about DSS and our relationship with them, and that's very, very positive. HVO is a great client. Our senior citizens depend on us a great deal. And then the general public, of course, use this service, both these services. The challenges we face are many. Public confidence post-COVID, you know, we're still fighting a little bit of that. Fuel prices, golly, everybody feels that pinch, and we do too. There's always a call and a need for extended hours and days of service. You know, we're always looking at ways to do that. Quality of our vehicles, I'll speak to that. We're able to rotate those vehicles at 100,000 miles. And when I got here 4 years ago, our fleet was, I'd compare it to anybody's. I'm used to public school activity buses, and some of the things we had to use in public schools were, you know, we had many, many miles on it, but our fleet was very good and still is. But we've got 7 vehicles that are in the replacement chain for FY22, 23, and 24. But the supply chain is such, we can't get them right now. So as these vehicles continue to add miles, then transmissions and other different things will start happening, and we'll face those challenges. And like everybody, we have a lot of older staff members, a lot of older drivers, and we're starting to see some retirement in that. And I'm constantly looking for good replacement to those. So anybody listening here today that has a desire to be part of Haywood Public Transit, we'd love to talk to you. So I'll leave you with this. The staff that I have, the dedicated drivers that have unbelievable relationships with the people that they drive on a daily basis, and my support staff are the true faces of Haywood Public Transit. I'm here to support them, and I do everything I can to do that. But they're the face, and they're the people out there they're the heroes that are doing the job, not only like during Fred's situation, but on a daily basis, transporting our county citizens. So I'll answer any questions that you might have at this point in time.
On the, you said the public confidence is a challenge on the employment post-COVID, and I guess you just reiterated that. For some reason, I thought that was public confidence in the people actually riding, but it's basically just getting people to come back to work because they've left with COVID.
It is, and it's an education thing. You know, we hear all the time, we didn't know your service existed, or if it wasn't for your service, we wouldn't be able to do the things we do, get into doctor's appointments and things like that. So we're constantly trying to get the word out as to what kind of service we have and what kind of opportunities there are. The public confidence that I was speaking to there is everyone, when COVID hit, everyone shut down, you know that. And just to let them know that everything in transit we've done to prevent a spread or any kind of contaminations, we were really ahead of the curve. We put up driver shields, we sanitize our vehicles on an hourly basis, things like that. So we're always trying to improve that public confidence.
Could you explain to the public how to get a ride on this as far as the rural goes and the urban? I see the urban would come by my office all the time, and you're right, your drivers are still wearing masks, right. So I see that. But is there specific stops on the urban and on the rural you just call? Or?
Yes, we've spent quite a bit of time and money updating our website. The map for the urban service is there. We also have signs up indicating our 20 some odd stops on the east and the west. As far as scheduling a door-to-door trip, just simply call our number, 828-565-0362, and we'll schedule, you know, a door-to-door service.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you are. And just like this past weekend, Brandon, thank you. We were ready to help Travis and EMS if it came to that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we'll dodge the next type of storm too, but we're ready if we're needed.
So I was just going to say too, you know, we don't realize, I guess we all have vehicles, and we don't realize that there are people out there that don't have a way to go to the doctor. And that and I didn't realize that till at church one Sunday. There was a couple there, and they didn't really have a way to get to their doctor's appointment, even get groceries. So, and now they're able to do that through Mountain Projects, which, you know, it just helps them get health care and get, you know, just the basics, you know, just the basics of life. So I appreciate all that y'all do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is the Haywood County Greenways Master Plan update. We have Ian Smith, Haywood County Recreation and Parks Director and the Chair of the Haywood County Greenways Council. Welcome, Ian. You're not a real popular name right now.
Good morning. Yes, I was texted on Saturday evening that in this area I ended up being a pretty disappointing hurricane. So it's okay. Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. I just want to give you an update on the Haywood County Greenways Master Plan. I sent an email in September, but just to recap that, I took over as the chair in January following Eric Romanishin's departure of Haywood Waterways Association. He was the former chair. And Caitlin Finkel, the town planner of Maggie Valley, has assumed the role of vice chair as well. In that email, I talked about the June public meetings that occurred for this plan. We had 3 in-person public meetings, one in Canton, one in Waynesville, one in Maggie Valley, and then a virtual as well. We had about 75 people come out. This was a very blank canvas meeting. It was a map of the county, and we asked, you know, what routes would you like to see utilized? What points would you like to see connected across the map? So what I'm going to show today is a draft design and recommendations chapter. And this map was largely built off of those recommendations that we got from the general public, that we got from stakeholders with municipalities as well. So The main factors that came back to link would be the municipalities, Lake Junaluska. One of the key themes was keeping a greenway green, not having it run along a busy roadway, things of that nature. So going from east to west, the spine of it would come in along 1923 right in front of Chestnut Mountain Park. Continue down through Canton along Park Street, and then there are two options there. I think what we call the C2 line, which is staying on 1923 heading towards Clyde, or the C1 line, which goes up Champion Drive and then along the north bank of the Pigeon River. And then once it gets to the lake, it kind of spreads out from there. It explores connections to the existing Waynesville greenways, how to connect those, as well as putting in some crossings there along Delwood Road near Lake Junaluska, where the entrance and exit ramp to 74 is located. That's been identified from the lake as a key need there for safety, and DOT is very willing to explore opportunities there. And then continues along Delwood, branches out to Maggie Valley, Jonathan Creek, and then as well as continuing south on into Jackson County along 74. I have some blown up slides of the municipalities. If you have questions on those, we can go into them, just out of interest of time. I'll keep it there. What we're waiting on next from Alta, planning and design from Raleigh, the company that we have contracted with to deliver this plan, finalize the public input from the previous public input session last Wednesday and Thursday, the cost estimate for the pilot projects, and the phasing plan for the entire greenway system. And it's important to note that what this plan does is that while it is a very long-term, I think what we're getting from Alta is about a 20-plus year plan, is that it allows us to leverage funds from NCDOT's Complete Streets policy, as well as the French Broad MPO for federal and state funds that would require about a 20 to 30% match. And the best I've heard this described as, this is a menu. We're building a menu here. Not everything has to be ordered. This plan doesn't obligate the county or the Greenways Council to anything, but it's a tool for us to use as we move forward with the Greenway project in the county. Currently, we have a hair over 2 miles of actual greenways in Waynesville and Canton. So obviously, we'd like to see those connected in Waynesville, extended. This plan would allow us to do that. So before we take any questions, I'll turn it over to Caitlin Finkel here for some final comments.
Caitlin, thanks for coming out today.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you to the county for having the public input in the municipalities, working with town staff and our citizens as well. You can see a lot of the comments that we've gotten over the last couple months that have gone into this plan. I just wanted to speak a little bit to the importance of having an adopted plan. So we have quite a number of DOT projects throughout the county, as you all know. When you have an adopted plan like this, DOT, through the Complete Streets policy, is on the hook for funding. So we, for example, want to have a sidewalk connecting to Jonathan Valley Elementary. Right now, we don't have an adopted plan that shows that, so Maggie Valley is going to have to pay the cost share. If this plan was already adopted and in place, we would not be responsible for any cost share. It would be on the responsibility of DOT to put in that sidewalk. So whether or not you're ready to move forward on these projects, simply having a plan in place really opens up the doors for some tremendous funding opportunities. And I really do think the plan has done a great job in working to connect the municipalities, as well as there's a proposal to try to get out on some public lands as well. So we're really excited to see how far this plan has come and to see what the time frame and cost estimates are going to look like here in the near future.
Yeah, and then lastly, we should have a final plan up for adoption by the end of the year. Just depends on how long it takes Alta to get those remaining pieces of the plan back. So expect something to come before you before the end of 2022. Are there any questions?
You mentioned that you said we currently have 2 miles of greenway, is that correct? Mm-hmm. And if the plan was completed as projected here, how many miles would there be?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can ask and get that back to you. Yeah. Okay.
I was wondering at your meeting Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday? Did you have a lot of public show to the Lambeth Inn?
Total between Wednesday and then the virtual public meeting on Thursday, we had about 25, which was slightly disappointing. I think a lot of it had to do with just the way it was advertised and the wording that was used. I spoke with some people Thursday afternoon. They said, I saw that, but I already gave my input in June. You know, what more input do you need? But it wasn't more input. It was look at the map that we've come up with, provide input on that compared to the blank slate in June.
I guess if the railroad's ever abandoned, we'll have it made because we can use the railroad grade throughout the county.
Rails to Trails has been very successful.
Yeah, and I was in Canada a few years ago, and they had an old rail line that was a greenway walkway, and it was pretty good, you know, because the railroads are on a very gentle grade, and then a lot of through our area, there's a lot of steep cuts, so if they're walking by a private property, they would be, you know, it's kind of private in a way too, so or high fields and big cuts. So I was just thinking of that as I was looking at this project, but I think that's still a long ways off. So
yeah, I think so.
My dad worked on the railroad, so I better not say too much.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Our next item is the update on public safety radio tower plan for the Lake Logan area, and our IT director, Joey Webb Jr. is here to report on that. And I just want to say yay that this looks like it's maybe coming to fruition.
Good morning. We have some progress to report, thankfully, on this project. Of course, like anything that's a construction project, it takes a little time, but we have selected a site. If you remember, we partnered with Mission Critical Partners who helped design and manage the construction of our 911 center and the tower at the Sheriff's Office to help us on this project. We've been working with them. They are still working to finalize the site design and engineering. They're going to be getting with planning starting this week because we've got the site design pretty much ready. Now we're looking at designing the actual tower and making sure it's compliant with our ordinance. Frank is working with our MCP folks to get a lease together for our property owners and get that locked down now that we know we've got a good feasible site. We did have a local contractor come out and do a budgetary estimate on the road construction that'll be needed to the site. It was right on target for what we had budgeted, so we're pretty excited about that. They've begun developing the RFP for the site development, so we can get that bid out as soon as we get our lease signed, hopefully, and we can get started on that road work and the concrete work before the weather drops off too cold. And our current goal is to select a vendor by the end of the year with work on the tower beginning probably in early spring. We'll be working on, like I said before, the road and the concrete pad and the fencing and a lot of those things ahead of time. But hopefully by early spring, we'll actually have a tower going up and ready for that thing to move forward.
Spring's probably on the corner, but still, the faster we can go, the better off. So thank you for the update.
And one other thing I meant to mention and I forgot is in addition to Lake Logan, the particular site that we've chosen also provides additional coverage in the greater Bethel area and up Highway 110, even over into the North Canton area. So
that's great.
It's a really good site. I think it's going to help us out a lot in several fire districts.
But we got problems now in that area too, you know, especially on the backside there. So this will help with that area too. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lake Logan is, I stay with my mom on the weekends, and she lives up near Camp Daniel Boone, and it's there's no cell service up there at all. If you go up the mountains, you can get some. And we put in satellite internet, which is very slow, but it's better, a lot better than nothing. Let's put it that way. So I feel like we've kind of come into the today's age. So I'm glad that the county's, recognizing that area through Brandon's efforts and all of our efforts. But thank you for trying to get us on the map there, Joey.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any discussion or adjustment to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move to our consent agenda. There are 9 items on the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions on any of those? Give you a minute to refresh your memory.
On the budget amendment, the $30,000, is it coming from legal?
On number 7.
On number 7, is it looks like we're appropriating balances for insurance accounts to multiple departments, but we've got it under legal, so, does that just mean it's?
That we're not adding any existing funds. We're taking funds that are available in 3 departments and moving it into just 1 department so that we can pay an invoice. I think it's for 3 deductibles for insurance issues. So we're not adding any additional funds. We're just moving it into the legal line.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. We approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tommy. Okay, that's unanimous. Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. We'll move on to the regular agenda. The first item is to request approval to reject the single ambulance bid received on RFB 08222022 from Spartan Fire and Emergency Apparatus Incorporated due to only receiving 1 bid. And Travis, our Emergency Services Director, is here. Travis Donaldson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, here before you this morning to go ahead and reject this 1 bid and go ahead and go back out to bid with the hopes that we get additional vendors to supply some bids to hopefully bring a little bit more competitiveness to what we're looking at. In the past, historically, we've only gotten, I think at max, when I went back, we've had 2 actual complete bids in the past 3 years from vendors. That's been our maximum that we've seen.
And we're having trouble, even when you get an ambulance, how long is it taking?
The ones that we're trying to buy right now, I think we'll be lucky to see in 3.5 years.
What do you think about the bid that we received, the quality of the bid?
The quality is there. I'm familiar with the product that particular vendor sells. We've actually got several trucks on order from them already that are forecasted to be here, hopefully sometime spring or summer, again, depending on all the supply chain factors that are affecting all the ambulance manufacturers and seems like everybody in general.
You feel comfortable that going back out to bid may bring a few more bids, plus you don't think the delay will be that significant by bidding it again?
There definitely will be a delay. I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to answer it completely and tell you how much of a delay, but obviously the later in the food chain that we jump into chassis orders, the more down the list that we get. And hopefully we get a couple more bids. That particular market, I think, is going to struggle severely in the next couple of years. It's a niche market, and dealers don't get paid unless they're actually delivering trucks. And when you cut truck deliveries way back, and expect to sell one truck 1 year and get paid for it in 3.5 years, that affects everybody's bottom line. I think it's going to knock out a lot of the smaller folks. I don't know if they're going to be able to survive going through this over the next few more years.
You feel comfortable making this recommendation to go out again for additional bids? I mean, that's your recommendation to us.
That in order to have some more competitiveness to what we're looking at. I don't know if it may end up costing us more money, but we don't know what we don't know at this point. So.
Okay. And I'm certainly worried about cost, but not as much worried about cost given the supply issues as I am making sure we have coverage in 2 or 3 years and we're not going, oh my goodness, I wish we'd had gone ahead and got that ambulance. So
yeah,
as long as you feel comfortable, I feel comfortable. You know more about it than I do.
Yeah, and we've got a fleet. It's an old fleet and it's going to get older. But as long as we can get parts to repair stuff, you know, there's going to be a lot of repairing for the next few years. So that's going to be our focus and trying to stay ahead of all that stuff. Having parts on hand, warehousing some stuff that we know we're going to have to replace, because even finding replacement parts on the shelves with the supply chain shortages that everybody's seeing makes it difficult at times.
All right. Thank you, Travis.
Travis, do you think the majority of the delay comes from the chassis, or is it the outfitting, or a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. Speaking to folks that are in the business, you know, ambulances come down assembly lines, just like your automobiles do. There are, you know, say a warehouse or a factory has 5 lines of production. I will tell you that speaking to some outside vendors that have been in these facilities, a plant that normally would have 5 lines running has 2 lines running right now, and they don't have chassis to build on, and they've got a bottom line that they've got to keep up too. So of course they're having to furlough folks, because if you've not got stuff to build, you know, you gotta be able to cut something somewhere, and unfortunately that's cutting in production. And then that plays into our job market and workforce that we're currently also dealing with. So it's a very volatile situation, to say the best about it.
So how quickly will you reopen the bid if we approve it today? And have you asked the current vendor that gave the bid if they would be willing to honor their numbers?
They hope to be able to honor. Again, with everything being so futile, they don't know if they'll have the same number when they come back to bid, or if it might be different based on any kind of price increases or material increases as they've seen.
And how quickly would you reopen if it's approved today?
As soon as finance is able to refund the bid bond check to the vendor and then get it reposted. We'll open it longer this time in hopes that somebody else nibbles on it. Probably looking at coming back in November to y'all with a request to award a bid.
Travis, I know that you had mentioned buying parts for our older fleet, which I know the answer to this, but I'm sure that parts are hard to find as well, and if you find them, they're fairly expensive too. Is that accurate to say?
That's very accurate, and it's becoming harder and harder to get stuff fixed in a timely manner. We had some fairly significant issues with a couple trucks, and I don't think we've managed to get one vendor to even call us back yet, and that was a dealership. And the other dealership we spoke to told us we could get in line and they could work on it toward the end of October. So it's a battle. It's a daily battle for us, trying to look forward and stay ahead and figure out what we need ahead of time is our only method to the madness to try to get through this for the next couple of years.
Well, I know it's tough. It's not only tough for us here in Haywood County, but it's probably across the nation. We're seeing the same thing happen. So I think we're doing the right thing by putting this through, at least trying to get another bid and hopefully get it sooner, but it's just a chance you take.
Well, I know Bryant and Travis, you both were, I mean, this is your recommendation. I mean, I guess this is going to put us off how much further, you may have already said, but.
It'll put the bid award off by probably about another month.
Okay.
And then the other factor there is how many people ordered ambulances between now and then in that month, and that bumps us on down that line as well. So.
This is a tough position to be in because you want to get quality competitive bids. We get one bid and it's about a 10% increase over last year's bid from a good company that we've got orders with. But you have to weigh, are we truly getting competitive bids or not? But yeah, it's going to delay us at least 30 days in getting the new ones here. But I think from the time they get the chassis, they're saying 770-day delivery date. So, and we don't know when the delivery date of the chassis will be. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and we just have to weigh the two values of getting competitive bids and getting them ordered. Travis and I have talked, though, the aging fleet we have, we know that we're going to end up needing to buy some motors or maybe transmissions, all kinds of things like that with the fleet to keep them running while we wait on the new ones to get in. So we'll have those conversations about more funds for repair and maintenance. Keep in mind we only have 2 mechanics at the garage, and we've got aging vehicles all over, not just ambulances, but we're running into supply chain problems with sheriff's vehicles, F-150s for building inspections and everything. So it's a really unique time as far as being able to buy fleet vehicles.
And something else to add in there, I know that me and Brian have talked a little bit about it, but trying to get ahead of the curve somehow, trying to actually buy the chassis ahead in a different physical year and go ahead and warehouse and fleet or park those chassis until another year when you actually need to put a box on them. So that's another option to start looking at. But we gotta get out of the box on these on the fleet problem, and I don't see it resolving itself for. Hopefully, maybe we might see an end of this in 5 or 7 years, or it might be worse based on how many ambulance manufacturers come out the other end of this, still making ambulances. But
I'm sure the discussion has been had, but it might be good to speak with the mechanics and say, hey, what parts can we order that are available that you know you will be able to utilize, or you anticipate being able to utilize, so you can prepare for those things going down.
Yeah, we're already having to address that, and it's worked out well several times, being able to have something on the shelf, because then when you figure out it's going to take you a week to get it, and you've already got it sitting there, that makes a big difference for keeping ambulances on the road and answering 911 calls.
And not putting you on the spot, but what's the average age and mileage of our current trucks?
Average age, I would have to say right now, is probably around the 3.5-year mark. We used to only put about 30,000 miles a year on frontline trucks, which that should put us, under 150,000. But the majority of our fleet is upwards of 175. I've got a couple trucks that are over 200,000 miles, approaching 250. And those won't be coming off the line until some of these that we're just trying to order now get here in the next 3.5 years. So we're going to be bouncing around a 500,000-mile ambulance this time it's all over, said and done with.
Travis, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Just an observation. I noticed the bid came in at $298. During budgeting, we were planning on around $325. That number looks good. Is there any hidden costs and maybe some equipment we have to put on the machine after it's delivered to get to $325, or did the bid bid came in a lot lower than what we budgeted for.
Tommy, there's stretchers as well as the load system that loads the stretchers into the trucks. I did not put that on the bid because I knew that we were going to end up being tight based on increases that vendors had told me that we would see. So we left those off, and we're going to bid and purchase those separately. Those are $40,000 a pop, and they're getting ready to have I think a 10 or 20% increase in the next month on those items.
Okay.
Everybody okay? Yeah, I guess I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 1 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Travis.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully I'll be back with some better news in a couple months.
Okay. Okay, item 2 of the regular agenda is to request approval of a lease for 75 parking spaces at the Haywood County Parking Garage to PHG Waynesville LLC. We have our Community and Economic Development Director, David Francis.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hope everybody's doing well today. Before you is a lease between the county and PHG Waynesville LLC. The lease calls for the use of 75 non-exclusive parking spaces on the 3rd and 4th floors. PHG LLC is proposing to build a hotel right over here at the corner of Depot and Montgomery Streets. And what this lease does is help the PHG meet the town of Waynesville requirements for parking in downtown Waynesville, and also helps with their financing of the hotel project as well. PHG is a hoteler out of Raleigh, North Carolina. They currently have 11 hotels in Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. A hotel that you may be familiar with over in Nashville is the Doubletree Inn, which hosts the Montford Rooftop Bar, which I hope that they will replicate over here with the rooftop bar as well too. They're also under construction over there is the Embassy Suites in Asheville as well, and they have two other hotels that they are trying to build in Nashville, Tennessee. They have a company of a long history of successful hotel operations. Feel comfortable moving forward with the lease. What the lease will do is it's a 20-year lease, 1 through 10 year. Is a payment annually of $26,250, basically $350 a parking space, and then 11 through 20, the lease goes up to $30,000 a year for $400 per parking space. Before we brought the lease before the board, we ran a parking tape across there to see the usage of that. And so the parking deck averages roughly about 223 users per day during the week, and surprisingly only about 20 per day during the weekend. So we felt like there was capacity there. The floors that they would be using on the 3rd and 4th floor, there are 65 spaces on each of those floors there. So that 75 shouldn't interfere through there in the parking garage as well. So if you have any questions about the lease, that's the highlights of there. Overall, there's 376 parking spaces in the parking garage presently. 351 parking spaces, 13 for compact cars and 10 for motorcycles. Comes up to that number. So I think there is capacity there, to meet this request from PHG and support the approval of the lease.
Have we ever leased spots in that parking garage before?
No, ma'am, we have not.
Making sure of full disclosure like we're supposed to do, I represent the seller of this property. But this request came from the buyer of the property, not to the seller, but to the county. And a couple of the things that were factored in on this as well is the fact that the parking at the parking deck's free anyway. The only reason this request is being made is because either the town of Waynesville is requiring it or the financing entity that's providing financing to them is requiring it. Otherwise, they could build their hotel and park their cars there for free and not pay anything. So it's really kind of a benefit to the county, the fact that they're actually paying money, and these are non-exclusive parking spaces, so there's not going to be a designation of you can only park here if you're going to this hotel. It's just, they're just utilizing parking spaces. They just needed a guarantee that they'd have those spaces, and that's why the parking study was done, to make sure that we did have sufficient room. And I think we've been monitoring the third and fourth floors. I know every time I walk up the stairs, the stairwell, I'm checking the third and fourth floors over the last several months just to make sure that there was that parking availability. And I think it's there, except for there's probably a couple days out of the year where we have festivals where there may be some issues with that.
Yeah, of course. During the Apple Festival and Church Street, which will be, the next two festivals upcoming this month, it always gets heavy use then as well.
The purchaser of the property still in the due diligence period?
It's almost ended.
Well, I'm sorry.
Is it still in the due diligence period?
Correct, yeah. When I talked to them on Wednesday, it was still in the due diligence. Yeah.
Everything else looks pretty good.
Any other comments?
Frank, do I need to refrain from this vote?
Yes.
Abstain, actually. I think that's a better word. Refrain.
Okay.
Sounds better.
Sorry.
This means you're not going to vote. I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 2 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you.
It's not unanimous. Those voting are unanimously voting, but there's one that is abstained.
Okay. Okay, we'll move to item 3, which is the request approval of a resolution supporting local regulation of sterile needle exchange programs. Frank, go ahead.
This is a resolution that attempts to address the issue that had been raised earlier about the sterile needle exchange program that was being operated within the county by, I don't know the exact name of them, but I think they were called the Harm Reduction Coalition or something like that. The issue is pretty subtle from a legal point of view, and let me take you through the analysis that led to my drafting of this resolution. There had been a lot of concern expressed publicly and by the commissioners that the program was creating needle litter in the public spaces of the county, and that was a potential health hazard for people who encounter the needle litter, etc. The issue is that those programs are not operated by the county. They're private nonprofit organizations that are operating in accordance with a specific authorization of state law. The statute is GS 90-113.27. That statute specifically is the act of the state legislature which authorizes the creation and operation of this kind of program. It has a very detailed series of requirements. There are reporting responsibilities. These kinds of programs can be operated either by governments or they can be operated by non-governmental organizations, what we call NGOs. And the Harm Reduction Coalition is a non-governmental organization. They are a private nonprofit organization that is operating this program. The issue is that because the program is specifically authorized by state law, the question becomes whether a local government within the state could prohibit the actions that the state legislature specifically authorizes. And the answer to that is no. You don't have the authority of every local government unit, whether it's a county or a town, the authority of local government units to pass legislative acts, including prohibitions of things, depends upon the authority that's granted to you, a local government unit, by the state government or by the state constitution. And in this case, we have a situation where we have a private, non-governmental organization that is operating a program that is specifically authorized by state law. So you don't have the authority, town of Waynesville doesn't have the authority, no, the city of Charlotte-Mecklenburg doesn't have the authority to prohibit an activity that's specifically authorized by state law. This comes from a principle that lawyers call preemption. It means that if a higher level of government authorizes something, then a lower level of government can't act legislatively in contravention of that higher level of government. In the same way, for example, that state law, the state of North Carolina couldn't pass a law that prohibited something that the federal law or federal constitution specifically authorized. The lower level of government simply doesn't have the legal authority to act on something that the higher level of government has specifically authorized. Now, with that, second issue, the notion of, for example, asking the state legislature to give us, a local government unit, specific authority to act in this area. So, for example, Haywood County asks the legislature to exempt it from that specific state law, for example, or joins with other local government units that might petition the General Assembly for the same kind of exemption. Looking at that, we run slam up against the North Carolina Constitution, specifically Article 2, Section 24, 1A of the North Carolina Constitution prohibits the General Assembly from passing a local act, that is an act of less than statewide authority, on the subjects of health, sanitation, and the abatement of nuisances. The North Carolina Constitution prohibits the General Assembly from passing a local act that affects health, sanitation, or the abatement of nuisances. So if we were to ask the General Assembly to exempt us from this harm reduction legislation authority, the state constitution prohibits the General Assembly from taking that action. What's left? What's left is what I've put in this resolution. And that is a request not to prohibit, but a request to allow local governments to regulate the operation of the programs that are specifically authorized by that statute. We've asked in this resolution, we're petitioning the state, the General Assembly, to make a change of general applicability. It can't be a local act. It has to apply to all the state. We ask the General Assembly to make an act that allows local government units to regulate on this subject. That is much more, first of all, that's legally authorized in my opinion. I think that the General Assembly could make such a change in the legislation that would allow local government units to regulate on this topic by by a law of general applicability, they could make that kind of authority with a couple of sentences added to the act, okay? Second of all, as a matter of public policy, because you're affecting something involving health, sanitation, and the abatement of nuisances per the Constitution, by making it of general applicability around the state, you're authorizing not just Haywood, we're asking them to authorize not just Haywood County, but every county or every local government unit of municipalities to regulate on this topic. And that kind of authorization would then eliminate the conflict, the preemption conflict that we call it, from the issue. Your regulations are themselves would then be governed by another feature that I've not talked about because it's too complicated, and that is the degree to which you can regulate, okay? The regulation that you would undertake after you got this authority from the General Assembly would have to be, quote, reasonable regulation and consistent with the objectives of the overall statute and the regulatory authority granted to you by the General Assembly. So that's the analysis of the resolution. Once it was passed, then it becomes a matter of public policy at the General Assembly as to taking the resolution into effect, taking the resolution into consideration when they consider potentially amending this General Assembly Act of that I just cited, GS 90-1. So that's let's see, that's a law school seminar on state and local preemption law and constitutional law related, and also local public policy. Questions?
Well, I think Kirk and Kirk, I know, well, I thought it would be unconstitutional for us to try to trump state law because we are a subdivision of the state, and so we derive our power from the state. In fact, the state can replace every one of us if they wanted to.
Well, they can't take you off the job. That's the job of the voters. But they can.
If we don't do our job,
they can negate. They can eliminate your authority to take actions on certain topics, and that's what they've done statewide. They didn't do it to you guys. They did it to the whole state.
So presently, an entity can come into Haywood County, like harm reduction, and operate their business in accordance with General Statute, Section 90, like you said.
Yeah, 90 days.
It's on there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about that because they're doing that in accordance with state law, but their regulating requirements are to report back to the state, not to the county. So this resolution requests that our legislature give the counties the authority to be the one that monitors that regulation or that monitors how they operate in this county.
You could add that as an authority. The statute is a very peculiar statute because it directs a program in order to qualify for this authority to operate these programs, that they follow an extremely detailed series of actions that are not limited, obviously, to sterile needle exchanges. They require that the program have other elements such as a connection between users and treatment. The requirement to have that connection in the program is a requirement of the state law. So you could, yes, you could have more than one program that operated under this authority. None of them report to local government units. They report to, they report to to I think the state health department. There's a specific reporting. There's a specific authorization and a specific annual reporting requirement. They're required to report the number of needles that were exchanged, the number of people referred to care, issues like that. That's all required to be reported by these programs, but they report to the state, not to us.
Right.
One of the things that you could ask them to do, one of the things you might ask the state legislature to do, is broaden that reporting requirement and involve local government units.
And I have been speaking with Representative Pless, and he's attempting to make some efforts into trying to find out how we can work with that statute and possibly change the statute, or how some counties are seeing less activity of needle exchange than we are. And hopefully he'll find out some information by mid-October on that.
I reached out to, there was somebody contacted me with, that works with the harm reduction in Appalachia. And in fact, he's working in West Virginia right now. But he said he contacted me because he had read an article in the Smoky Mountain News, and he had given me a couple of people to contact. He told me to contact Needy Sakdeva, I guess, she's with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And that these North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, of which we're a part, has a part, and the lady that I contacted is the Director of Strategic Health and Opioid Initiatives. So she's with our organization, North Carolina or the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And she sent me some information. She said the North Carolina, and it's in Haywood County, it's a North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition. And they serve Haywood County through mobile and peer-based SSP. I'm not sure what that is. I guess that's syringe exchange program. But she said, in addition to providing syringes and sterile supplies to participants in Haywood County, and she had some stats from this year. The North Carolina Harm Reduction has made 39 linkages to mental health and substance use disorder treatment. And they have had 336 linkages to care to a variety of other wraparound health and social services such as medical care, housing, including rental and utility assistance, employment assistance, and nutrition, food and nutrition services. So there's 336 of those linkages, and that's just this year, and 39 linkages to mental health and substance use disorder treatment. And then last year, she has some stats that this group has to provide, as Frank said, and that's in the statute too. And it said last year they had 100 referrals to mental health and substance use disorder treatment. They had 26 referrals to primary care. They had, importantly, they had 3 referrals to HIV treatment and 7 referrals to hepatitis C treatment. They had 59 referrals to housing. They had 5 referrals to employment and 132 referrals to other health and social resources. And I guess the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners keeps up with this. So this was the stats that she gave us for the last 2 years. And then she also sent me a text, and she said, I feel like I was just telling her we had some people questioning it in the county. And she said, I feel like a broken record most of the time. The good thing, there is a bunch of us sharing a consistent message, and we've got 30 plus years of evidence backing us up. So I would, if y'all want to, I'll send you all this email. I'll forward it to you to say, this shows what the program is doing in Haywood County. And also there's he also gave me a contact for Dr. Kristen Baker, she is the chair, she's a House representative in the legislature. She's the chair of the Health Committee, okay? And he told me that she was very supportive of this, because I know Brandon had asked, since this is passed, how do these people feel about it? Of course, Senator Davis isn't in the General Assembly anymore, but anyway, Dr. Kristen Baker she's from Cabarrus County, and I understand that Cabarrus County actually does the needle or the syringe exchange program in their county. So she's very supportive of the program. She's a Republican, very conservative Republican, but and I had reached out to her office, and I'm waiting to get some information. And as soon as I get that, I'll send that to y'all, so y'all have that. So anyway, when we were working on this resolution, I reached out to these two entities from this fella, and he's with a national program that works in Appalachia primarily, because Appalachia is where a lot of this opioid abuse is going on. And he works right now. When I talked to him, he was actually in Morganton, West Virginia, was working on the program up there and trying to get help to some of those folks. So, but anyway, that's just some background for y'all to know about it.
Did they give you any information about the number of syringes that go out versus the number that they collect back?
I can ask and find out. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think, for me, the issue has never been the referrals that they make and the good that they do. It's the byproduct that it produces in our county. So if we could just get those numbers, I think that would satisfy a bunch of us.
Okay, yeah, and that's good. That'd be good to know. And it does, there was another, it does cut down on syringe litter, and I've said that all along. It does cut down on, these programs do cut down on syringe litter. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you know, if you give out more food, you get less hunger and stuff. So, and I guess that's the way this works in a way. So, but I'll find that out. I'll ask her about that. I kind of wonder about that myself.
Yeah, I'd like to know the numbers on what comes back on the exchange portion.
Okay.
One of my concerns is just how it's been administrated in Haywood County, and I don't know if we really know that. One thing I would like to request is maybe we could appoint Amy to request each month from the entity that harm reduction or whatever entity operates here in Haywood County, when they submit their requirements or their reports to the State Department of Health, that we get a copy of those so we can continuously see that each month. If they have to provide it monthly, we can see that, what they report.
I don't know how often they're reporting it. In fact, the statute requires that they file an annual report, but it could very well be that as an administrative matter that they're reporting much more frequently than that, or quarterly or whatever. But the statute merely requires an annual report. Again, there's some local governments that operate these programs themselves, and so those kinds of programs would also have public record data about all this information. But again, it's a private nonprofit organization. What information it's willing to release outside its legal requirements is up to them.
Right. And part of this is to, obviously we take an oath to abide by the state constitution, abide by the statutes. As commissioners, we have to do that. But I want to make sure that those nonprofit organizations are strictly adhering to that statute while we check into a process of either changing the statute some or trying to get our legislatures to change that statute such that, if there is a program run, that it's run correctly and properly and we don't have needles out there on the ground.
And part of that, too, Kirk, I think may be the reporting. If it's only being reported annually, and they're not being forced to give us a report on a monthly basis, could be some of the problem, because they feel a little more relaxed. And I want to be clear, too, Commissioner Long and I have talked, we're still doing the programs in our jail and the ER, and we still want to get the mental health part of it. This is specifically what we're concerned with, I think, is the needle exchange or the syringe exchange. So And that's my concern, you know, is the excess litter that's out here on our streets and in front of our businesses, and what our citizens are having to go out and pick up and be concerned with. So I just want to be clear on that. And then, as you said, I spoke with Representative Pless myself, and concerning this issue, and our hands are tied, you know, to some extent. I wanted to see an ordinance, but obviously that's not doable at this time. So this is the best that we can do, is this resolution, which I think is a step forward. It's a little more than the lip service that Mr. Miller referred to. I think that's all we can do at this time. And by doing that, we're taking our first step forward. And hopefully, going forward, we'll see this problem corrected.
Well, and I'm all about assisting people in recovery, because I think assisting people in recovery will help the community. But I'm not about enabling the addict. And there's just a real fine line right there, unfortunately, with doing that. So hopefully we can continue to monitor this and work towards helping our community.
I think what you said there is monitoring it, and if we can actually do that instead of getting an annual report, I think would go a long way. And I'm the same way. You know, as a Christian, I think that's our duty, is to help others and to help the ones that's maybe fell down on their luck or a little less fortunate. But at the same time, I don't want to enable those folks, you know, and help them with their problem, their addiction. There is a fine line. So when it becomes a problem for all the other ones around, that's when it becomes a problem for myself. And I don't want to be the guy sitting in this seat that's enabling those folks or littering our streets. So I'm all for this resolution.
Okay, and I do think they must, because she gave me some numbers for this year so far, so maybe they do it maybe quarterly or something, but anyway, so hopefully we can find out how to.
And none of the numbers you have talk about what goes out and what comes in. Because I think I'm in agreement with Commissioner Rogers and Kirkpatrick that, you know, the referrals, linkage to care, 39 linkage to care, I mean, that any time we make one, that's a step in the right direction. But it's the impact that it has on our community that I think we're all trying to monitor.
She sent me this was in the opioid settlement that NCACC gave. It says syringe, SSPs reduce crime and make neighborhoods safer. SSPs reduce the amount of syringe litter in the neighborhoods where they operate, no matter how many syringes they distribute, by providing options for safer disposal. Concerns like syringe litter can be addressed by common sense solutions such as expanded placement of sharps containers, support for neighborhood cleanups, funding for adequate medical waste disposal, and education campaigns about safe disposal practices. Collection syringes in hard plastic containers, seal it, throw it away in a trash or at a solid waste site. Syringe, and then they does not increase or promote criminal activity and have been linked to crime reduction. And they have, in this, and this is from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, it's syringe service programs, a summary of the evidence. So I'll forward this to you. This is a PDF that's in that, and it's got, and then when they make these claims, it has the notes where where that claim was gotten from. So anyway, just info for y'all. Okay, so is everybody ready to vote on that? Okay, you want to make a motion, Brandon?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I'm second. Well, I'll second. You want a second?
You second it, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There, Tommy? Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I might also add that since the resolution passed, I can take this to the Education and Health Subcommittee at the NCACC for a last-minute legislative goal for discussion. Again, I think it boils down to the fact that local governments need more control over regulating the needle waste. And right now, as we stopped that part of the program 2 years ago, obviously we still have a problem. So, local governments need the ability to have a say in how their community is affected and get a better handle on the excess waste that is affecting our citizens out here on the street. So anything we can do to that. I do know that other parts of the state have problems with this, and after some discussion with our legislator, there is some overage of needle distribution, and it winds up in people's yards and church yards, and that's not good. So that's what we're striving to do here.
Right. Okay, so I'll move on to the next order of business is appointments. We do not have any. We do not have a closed session. But does anybody have anything else before the board?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Just going back to my comment on Mr. Miller's comment earlier in the meeting, I wrote myself a few notes here.
Hey, go
just
ahead.
some things that...
And I will say Mr. Miller had left the meeting a long time ago, so he didn't stick around to hear this. So.
Right.
Or what you're about to say, but go ahead.
That's okay. I'm sure he'll watch this later on, but I hate Mr. Miller had to leave as well. But, obviously Mr. Miller has some evidence of the J Creek property and the wrongdoing that's going on down there. And during our meeting that he referred to at the Buttered Biscuit, we spent some time talking about it, and I had asked for the evidence because he is speaking of some missing monies of about $6 million, I believe it was, close to that, he says. And I have just simply asked for the evidence to be presented to us, and I think Commissioner Long had asked for the same information because he had mentioned it to both of us. And I have patiently waited. No evidence has been brought forward. Obviously, if you're talking about that high of a number or that much money, it's concerning to me. And I asked Mr. Miller in front of that audience that we had there to present the evidence, and he couldn't do so. And I have patiently waited since that time for him to bring the evidence forward, and have not got any. So I would like to see that money. Obviously, like I said, he has got some things that adds up to that much money, and I would just like to see it. Since I've been elected, or been a commissioner in 2016, I've had many conversations with Mr. Miller, and a lot of those conversations has been about the wrongdoing of the county or the county staff or what they're doing. And I have always said, okay, give me facts, give me evidence. And like I said, that's been 6 years that I've been waiting and have not got the evidence or facts of any wrongdoing. He has always said, if you'll just wait, give it till next month, give me a few weeks. And I have, like I said, patiently done so, and have not got anything. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that may be watching or sitting in the audience today. I have no problem whatsoever. If there's anything going wrong or not being done right in our county government, I'll be the first to stand up and either correct it or bring it forth to the public and let them know about it. But like I said, I hate wasting more of our county's time. Mr. Miller continually sends emails every week asking for public records or public information. We provide that information, and for 6 years I've been waiting on Mr. Miller to bring evidence to me showing any wrongdoing, and like I said, I have not got any. And again, if there's any wrongdoing, I'd be more than happy to present that to the public or correct it or charge folks or whatever we need to do. But again, like I said, Commissioner Long and myself both asked for evidence. I just want to see some simple math. You know, I may not be the greatest speaker in the world, but I am pretty good at math. Math was one of my best subjects, and when I add all the numbers up, especially coming up to this amount of money, I would just like to see where that money's being spent. So Mr. Miller brought up, you know, that we had the conversation and what we discussed, and a lot of it was asking for some numbers, and like I said, nothing was presented. So again, I want to be clear on that. I just felt like as the meeting went on, I wanted folks to know I'm not trying to hide anything. Never will. I'll always be forthcoming of any information that I have, and I just ask for Mr. Miller to be the same.
You're a good businessman too, Brandon. So,
Well,
I think if the numbers are there, you'd pick up on it.
Right. I've always looked at the numbers and like numbers in general, and maybe that's why I am in my own business, you know, because I like doing that. And again, numbers always add up. It's pretty simple. 2 + 2 is 4. So,
in my profession, we work on evidence, and it's funny, you know, being a surveyor, I'll go out and do a survey, and somebody will say, "My deed says this line's, you know, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Well, I've got your deed, and I don't see that in there." And usually that kind of solves the problem. There's not a problem because your deed doesn't say that. So, so evidence is and a preponderance of the evidence is what I like to see when I make my decisions. So, but if you don't have anything other than somebody just making something up, you can't use that. Because like I say, when we provide the evidence, which is what Christian has done and our staff has done, he seems to think that there's something else there, and there's not. So, you know, if there's some evidence somewhere else, I'd love to see it. But appreciate you following up on that, Brandon.
well, I'm the same way, Kevin. I mean, I always like dealing off of facts, and anytime someone comes to me with any information, I want to look at the facts, no matter what it is. And I'm not good at making stuff up myself or telling lies. So I like having facts and fact-based evidence. So, thank you.
It was my understanding we reviewed all the costs regarding the Jonathan Creek project when we decided to sell it and factored that in the sale. That's correct, isn't it? As I recall. And we made sure to get the people's money back.
Sure, you know, and that's one thing that I was concerned with, you know. Probably spent more on that project than what we needed to, no doubt, but I wanted to be sure that we were getting our money back plus some, and that's what we did, you know, and I looked into it myself, and again, didn't see any wrongdoing, and all the facts was presented, you know, and we have asked for it, and Mr. Miller's asked for it, and evidently when the facts are there and you don't find what you're looking for, you make up stuff, so.
Thanks for that, Brandon. I got anything else they want? Okay. We don't have any. Oh, Tommy, the fair is when?
Thursday.
Thank you. Yes, the opening ceremony is Thursday evening, and it runs through Sunday evening. I think it's going to be really great. So everybody in Haywood County, come on out. Nice, cool weather, and I know you'll find something that you like down there, all the way from the kids to the adults. So we're looking forward to it.
And used to, the fair was at the end of September, and it was supposed to be, and then we backed it up to the last of August, right before Labor Day. And so this year it's going to be here in October, which is kind of a good time because all the crops are in, and the fair's all about produce. Go ahead, Frank.
Just a note, the manager reminded me that we're resuming our process of evaluating the ordinances, the book of ordinances that we have, and we'll be having we'll be calling for a public hearing on the usual sorts of those. We'll probably have 2 or 3 available for a public hearing for the next meeting. And so far, the things that I've identified and the changes I've made have just been housekeeping. There's no substantive changes on any of it so far, but we're trying to bring them in 2 or 3 at a time. We kind of slacked off on this during the summer, but we want to have 2 or 3 ordinances at a time being reviewed and then pass on them. Again, there's not anything, I haven't seen anything yet that's really substantive. It's just language and conformity with other stuff.
Thank you. And once again, the fair is from Thursday to Sunday this week, so. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.